celebrating and showcasing some of the most amazing people around the world who are doing incredible things to make our world a better place. This is CUTV News. I'm Jim Masters. Thanks for joining us. Today we celebrate Nina Kelly. As a mythologist, storyteller, author, humanitarian, Nina's sense of adventure has always been sparked through learning more about people and their cultures. Nina believes if you understand a person's cultural background, stories, myths, and rituals, acceptance is more readily attained. Her compassion for the art of healing through stories brought her to the place of writing her book, Grace Has a Silent Voice. Through many years working with death and dying patients, she gained a tremendous respect for the proper honoring of story in one's life. In this book, she wishes to acknowledge all the silent heroes that walk into our life for a moment, then quickly disappear. This interaction inevitably leaves an imprint that continues to remind us there is beauty in humanity. Simultaneously, Nina devoted her life to the creative and performing arts. Each culture is strongly embedded in healing through the various art form expressions. She strongly promotes this concept as demonstrated throughout history. Nina challenges us through the inspiration and motivation of storytelling. She's also contributing author to Saving Wednesday's Child and the Amazon bestsellers Success Mastery with Jack Canfield and The Big Question with broadcast legend Larry King. In addition, Nina is a partner in 4 Women Films and executive producer of the short provocative film Dandelion. She's also an executive producer of the poignant documentary A New Leash on Life, The Canines for Warriors, which serves as a testament to her passion of healing through animals and their amazing, pivotal, and endearing role as healers for veterans plagued by post-traumatic stress disorder. It's my pleasure to welcome Nina Kelly to CUTV News for an exclusive interview. Nina, thank you very much for joining us on CUTV News. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Wanted to meet you for a long time. You're so busy, an executive producer, an author, writer, storyteller, humanitarian, mythologist. We're going to break all that down for the audience, but first, mythologists. How do you define what a mythologist is?
Well, a mythologist is someone who has studied many cultures, their philosophy, their psychology, their literature, their rituals, studying with the people themselves, and really learning about different people and what makes up the world. Yeah. And
that is really fascinating because I'm sure you learn a lot of different things in that process, right?
Yes. You know, I have not seen the world the same. Mm-hmm. You just don't. You know, you see with a different lens.
How has it changed for you, would you say? What are the things that stands out the most?
I think the best thing that I can say is that once you learn about different cultures and different people, you don't try to change them. You accept them, and it helps you to understand where they're coming from, what they're about, what's the food they eat. You know, what are the things they love to do? So you look at that with a different lens, and you just don't see things the same way.
And that's important, right? Because it gives us a different perspective and appreciation for different cultures and different viewpoints. And sometimes maybe we'll make some changes of our own, too, that can enhance our lives and the lives of others, right?
Yes. We have a saying in New Orleans that it takes many ingredients to make a great gumbo. Well, that's kind of how I look at humanity. All these great ingredients makes wonderful humanity work.
So we're talking about humanity.
Yes.
And you are a humanitarian. I mean, you're so involved in the community, you're always giving back to people. How do you define what a humanitarian actually is? Again, everybody has their own perspective, but in terms of how you live it every day of your life.
Sometimes when you're when you're busy being in service of others, it's just so natural. And I think that's how I call it my tithing to humanity. I work equally, if not harder, on my gift to humanity, and I just want to be in service. I'm very passionate about people's stories. I'm very passionate about learning about different people. I've offered my time and energy to the arts, to social service programs, to the School of Music. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Always giving back.
Yeah.
And you
I
have
just
this
think-
real passion. You've
Yeah.
created this passion and thirst for storytelling, telling stories, and for healing as well. Where do you think that passion initiated originally?
I just had a flash. When I was a young girl, I was from a small town, and we had a town square, and I would sit there and I'd listen to the stories of the elders. And then all throughout my young life, I was fascinated by the stories of the elders and the light that comes in their eyes when they start telling their stories. And then when I started working with dying people, it was so important for them to tell their story. And the life that came from their eyes and from their life, it was so healing. And I think that gave me matter of fact, I know that's what gave me my passion.
Moved you deeply.
Yes, it
touched
did.
you to
And-
want to tell those stories.
Yes, and every time I've ever done anything, I'm fascinated by someone's story. And it's amazing when they change. They change when they can tell their story, because there's a part of their story they may not even be aware of.
Right.
But when they start speaking about their story, they go, ah,
They're tapping into certain things that they're
Yes.
allowing to rise to the surface.
yes,
So that must be exciting doing that work.
it is. It is. Yeah.
What's your favorite part about it? Is it giving people the ability to have the light shine on them so they can tell that story?
Yeah.
Creating that safe zone for them to be able to remote and share?
I'm so happy you picked that up, because that's true. Being the listener. And when I just had an experience the other day. I met someone strange. I was on an airplane, and all of a sudden I looked over, and they had these photographs of this. Obviously, it was a tribal union of people getting together. And I go, oh, I normally don't do this, but that's fascinating. And then he said, thank you for asking. And then that was it. He, for the next 2.5 hours, shared all about his life. And at the end, he said, thank you for asking the question. See, those are incredible moments.
And sometimes we don't seize them, but they're in front of us, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So what were you left with that? Because obviously he was left with something
Yeah.
that you noticed. But
Yeah.
what were you left with?
That he was a phenomenal hero doing incredible things, and no one really knew about it. You know, he was one of those great heroes.
But it intrigued you.
But it intrigued me, and it's one that should be told. Yeah.
Speaking of storytelling, you've written this amazing book, Grace Has a Silent Voice. What was the inspiration for this book here, Nina?
These are true stories of individuals in the times of tragedy that have the resilience of the human spirit in times of tragedy. And at the times when you think you couldn't even begin to shine, they rose to the occasion. I felt compelled to write these and honor these people. And these are phenomenal stories, and they are heroes in my book, in my world.
So as you were writing this book, it must have been a very cathartic experience for you too.
Yes.
Therapeutic in a way, right?
Yeah, it really was.
Tell us
Yeah.
about that. What was that process like writing this book for you?
Well, see, now that's going to bring tears to my eyes, because there's a story in there of a man who lost his wife and his daughter at the same time. And I was a organ procurement coordinator, transplant coordinator, and I had to ask for consent at the time. Now, can you imagine going to work early in the morning and you have lost your entire family by 7:30 in the morning? That's incomprehensible for most of us. And in the hospital, I always said a prayer before I went to see the patient, always, that please give me the right words. And when I asked him, I'll never forget this, he goes, my wife and my daughter will live on. But then he said to me, I can donate everything but their heart. Will you forgive me for that? I couldn't believe that. And I said, there's nothing to forgive. This is the greatest gift you can give to anyone, is an opportunity for someone else to live. these are what these stories are about. How could that not affect me? I went and I watched him, and at the time he was so strong, and he wanted to give something back.
He wanted to give something back.
You know?
So the book itself, what do you feel overall it signifies?
The beauty of the human spirit.
Through trial, tribulation,
Yes.
resilience.
The resilience. And, you know, there's so much negative press,
Oh, sure.
a lot, all over the world.
All day long.
I can't tell you how many times I have been in the face of death with people and the tragedy there. And the it doesn't make sense, but the life that comes at the time of death is the most profound experience you'll ever experience. I felt compelled to honor these people.
Because you've worked around death and the dying. Tell us a little bit about that important work that you've done.
Well, that was a lot of my career. I did a lot of private duty with people that were dying, and so I happened to be with them at the time that they did die. I also was involved with the medical school with organ donation, transplantation. So I was at the time of asking consent, managing the donor, bringing the organ to wherever the new donor was going to be. So it was from, it was always life, death, life, death, life, death. I don't. I'm a serious person, but I certainly don't take life that seriously.
You can't, right?
You can't.
Right.
I mean, because it's gone, and it happens. So you better live and enjoy life,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite an experience to be. How did you deal with it day to day, knowing that you're around people that were eventually going to pass away? Did it make you more resilient?
I never thought about it, but obviously it must have, because I'm still here. I mean,
Right.
I'm still here. But I also, I called it tithing. My tithing was in the arts. So, if you're always walking in death, so to say, you're walking on the side of death,
Sure.
then the life, I find that the arts are healing and the profoundness that comes from that. So that's how I balanced it. And I worked, like I said, I gave equally as much to my tithing life as I did to my professional life.
You also have this amazing love for animals and the healing power of animals too, and involved in that wonderful documentary involving animals. Tell us about this wonderful documentary that you worked on, specifically with dogs that are actually working alongside veterans.
Yes. These are dogs that are taken out of the shelter, and they're trained for 3 months to be the partner of post-traumatic syndrome warriors. And then they go and they live in this home together, and they're trained. And these post-traumatic syndrome wounded warriors, it gives them, the name of the documentary is A New Leash on Life, and that's exactly what it does.
I love that, a new leash on life.
It's
That's
yes,
great.
it's incredible.
Because that's what's happening. It's like a new lease, but yet play on the word leash.
And during the filming of this, and those soldiers were telling their story, the dog that's assigned to a soldier picked up the emotion and put its head on the soldier's lap, could pick up the sensitivity.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
It's unconditional love.
It's unconditional
that
love.
was created.
Yes.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's amazing. And those dogs stay for the life of the dog.
And
And
so they are partnered up
yes.
to the end of time.
Yes.
For the dog.
And when you listen to the soldier tell the story, listen, I was, because they were wounded. And many of them carry the guilt that their partner, that their buddies didn't make it back.
Right, that
so they have that,
experience, sure.
yeah. So they have that guilt. But when there's this dog that comes there, it
becomes like a buddy.
it's their buddy, and that dog is so intuitive and so sensitive. And you look in the dog's eyes, and then you look in the soldier's eyes. It's a miracle.
So did you do a lot of traveling for that? Did you have to go all over the country, or how'd that work?
No, the filming was done in Florida because the agency is right outside of Orlando, and that's where it was filmed. And it was great. The premiere was in New York, It was the facility.
Because this is fresh. This
Oh,
is this documentary that we're talking about is brand new.
Yes, and it was produced and created by and directed by Nick Nathan. And he has done a remarkable job. I mean, a remarkable job. It premiered in June. It was phenomenal.
And what did it feel like being part of that producing team? That must have been exciting for you.
It was so exciting because you're seeing something, because you're seeing right before your eyes. You see what's happening. You see the results. It's immediate results. And yes, it was so exciting. And the honesty of the soldier to share their story. See, it goes back to story.
Yeah.
And the ability to, once you recognize what your story is, that's the healing.
That's right, because everybody has a story.
And everyone's story is different.
Right, exactly. So all these things that you're telling us about are threaded together. I mean, it's the story of your life. Everything, you know, if you really look at it all and analyze it, it all flows beautifully from one thing to the next, which is part of your own life's journey. Another thing that you did, this wonderful book here, The Big Question. And the person on the cover, of course, in addition to Nina Kelly, Larry King, the broadcast legend, who I've always admired as well. How did you team up with Larry King to co-author this book, The Big Question?
Well, I'm one of the co-authors, and this all came about from a documentary. We just completed the documentary. It was it was shown in September of this year in LA.
And what was that about?
Okay, that's the life of Larry King. It's
That's
called
his
A
life.
Celebration of Life.
Wow.
And that was remarkable. Again, that was so interesting because I'm going to quote Mr. King. He said, "Look, I'm 84 years old. I've had a lot of life experiences. And you see with a different lens. You see life so candidly." And he was very passionate about telling his story, how he became a broadcaster, and the humanness of all. Look, we make mistakes.
Sure.
And we all do. But he was so candid about it that I was impressed. And as he sat there were 12 of us in this one particular screening, and he's telling us, and I'm so taken back by the honesty of this man. And you know, he has exceptionally dry wit.
Oh, absolutely. That New York quick wit, the dry, absolutely, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I know, it's really funny. So from that came the book, The Big Question. And he was very interested in, what is your question? And then answer your question. And so that's kind of how that all came about.
Wow,
Yes.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So you sat down with him and just rolled.
Well, I didn't sit down with him. You know, there was several of us there, and so he was actually. We were filming, so he did the speaking. But then after, you know, you have a gathering and you're talking and everything, and that's when all this other came about. And it's just, he was so easy to be around because, you know, I grew up watching Larry. We all grew up watching Larry King.
He was on the Mutual Broadcasting Network, on radio, and of
Yeah.
course CNN for so long.
Yeah.
What did you learn from this experience? What did you take away from interviewing somebody like a Larry King, or just meeting him and learning about his life and the things he went through and the things he accomplished?
Yes, I learned it is totally all right to be passionate about what you are passionate about and go for it, you see. And it doesn't matter because it's your dream, it's your vision. And he stayed true to what he wanted to be. And I learned that that's okay. You know, we're going to all have our own little trails and do our own little thing. Not little, they're all huge. I mean, that's a Southern thing.
Absolutely.
but you know, so we're going to all have our moments of passion, and then honor that, keep that fire going, and don't let anything stop you.
Don't let anything stop you.
Don't let anything stop you.
Was there anything in this process of this book that surprised you, either about Larry or just the process itself?
Yes, he gave me permission because many people wrote about business, and I wrote about what I was passionate about. And that gave me that permission. And watching him, because he has these piercing eyes.
Sure, yeah.
And he looks at you.
And he looks through you.
He does. And then you're going, just go for it.
Answer the big question.
Answer the big question. And my question was, why does music matter? Because it stirred. That's what has kept me alive my whole life. Music. And I thought, that's the question, and that's what I'm going to answer, because it allowed me to speak my truth.
See, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible when that happens, and you don't even know initially going into it that this is what's going to develop.
Yeah.
But it does.
I know, because I'm going, Larry King, what am I going to write? Right. What am I going to say?
It's easy to get stuck on just that.
Yeah.
But you allowed yourself to go through that and then get to let it pass and then get to the heart of the matter.
Yes.
It's a fascinating book. Really is. And another person that you teamed up with, this is actually one of 2 books.
Yeah.
This is Success Breakthroughs, and of course, the renowned motivational speaker, author, and so much more, Jack Canfield.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you connect with Jack Canfield and then end up in a process of co-authoring this book, Success Breakthroughs, and then this is the other, Success Mastery as well?
Yes.
How did this happen?
Well, I took quite a bit of Jack Canfield's training, and I've learned a lot from Jack Canfield, and I respect him. And so that kind of things, life happens.
Sure.
I don't know how it happens. I have a million stories of my own, probably go, I cannot believe this happened. But it just kind of spiraled from that. And there again, I have to honor and thank Nick, because Nick Naton really has been, I guess, the road that has kind of helped me. I mean, it just opens. It's like the invitation comes and you can either accept it or not.
Or not.
Yeah.
So if people are not familiar with who he is, tell us a little about...
Nick Naton is with DNA Agency, which he has produced 80 movies and 50 documentaries, and he is a mover and a shaker.
So he's involved in this, obviously.
He's involved in this too, yes,
this as well.
Absolutely.
So what is this about, Success Breakthroughs? What
Okay,
is the
this
concept?
is about individual stories of people and what transpired that turned their life around. And so you were to write what happened with you, was it whether it was in business or whatever. I wrote about people, other people, and just from their stories, how the resilience of those people. Also the paradigm of, I also write about the orchestrated paradigm of, as we're going down the journeys of our life, what comes from those, what gifts come from those, if we honor those stories that are within us, or the stories of others, because you always gain something from other people's stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah.
You have another book too with Jack Canfield, and that's Success Mastery.
Yes.
Is it about mastering success? What is it about?
Well, success comes here.
Sure.
And
from within.
It does. And so where is your energy behind that? And many people equate it, well, whether you have books or you have businesses or whatever you equate as success. For me personally, I believe success is internal. The rest becomes easy on the external. Mm-hmm. But you must, I personally believe, know thyself, as Shakespeare said. Shakespeare said, know thyself.
That's so true.
Yeah.
A lot of this really is talking about the resilience of the human spirit.
Yes.
In everyday life, but oftentimes in times of tragedy too, right?
Yes, yes.
It's amazing when you really think that you can't get through something, and then you tap into yourself and you realize that oftentimes you're stronger than you give yourself credit for, right?
Yeah, yes.
Have you learned that too in your life's journey?
1,000,000 times over. I think so.
Right.
It's like, okay, is this another lesson? Yeah.
And everything really is, right?
Yes, it is.
Everything really is. Well, let's talk about this. We've got this other fantastic book here. You're excited about this one, right?
I'm excited about this one, yes.
Very excited about this one.
Yeah.
Saving Wednesday's Child.
Yes.
What was the inspiration for this book? And tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. I was asked to become the president and CEO of the Children's Bureau of New Orleans. This agency is the second oldest agency in the country. New York City is the first. So the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty of Children. The Children's Bureau of New Orleans was called the Society of the Prevention of Cruelty of Children until 1929. Then its name changed to Children's Bureau. But it's been in existence since 1892. Okay, it's a long time.
Sure is.
During my presidency, which I started in January of 2005, and as everyone knows, Katrina started in August of 2005.
There you are, and yeah, you're in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the heart of it all. Tell us about all that.
So I'm going to back up. When I first began and I started studying at the archives, I met the senior manuscript curator. And he writes me a note and he goes, I want to do something worthy this year. And I went, boy, do I have a plan for you. You know? And so we made an agreement. He would write from 1892 to 1929.
Yeah.
I would take from 29 to the current time. Well, then Katrina happens. Okay? And everyone knows that story. So then the scenario changed. The scenario changed to saving the Bureau versus writing a book about it.
Yeah.
Right. But I'll tell you a little bit about this book. But I own the book and the rights and everything because I self-published it. I had it published, but
sure, right.
You know. And then, but this is the agency. The Children's Bureau of New Orleans is the agency that took Louis Armstrong off the street.
Wow.
He stayed in the Wharf's home. He was given a horn. He was taught taps. He asked to stay longer, and the rest is history. And Louis Armstrong was a great humanitarian for life and being, and he loved the children. So when I started reading all about this, and not only, that's just one story. There's so many stories that come out of this bureau. Then on top of that, at one point in time, they created more juvenile justice laws in the country than any other state. So there's this plethora of knowledge. It's the best kept secret.
It's incredible.
And it could be a great role model and a great vision for the rest of the country on good things that are happening for children.
So is the book celebrating the Bureau? Is that what it is?
Yes, and the whole idea.
Various stories in there as well?
Yes, yeah, it tells the history of the Bureau.
That's the whole history, yeah.
It was like, let's get this story out here. Now, fast forward a couple of years, several years, it's time to get the documentary done because the story is much greater than this, you see.
So this was a situation where the book was first and now a documentary.
Yes.
With Larry King, it was the documentary and then the book.
Yes.
And sometimes in this industry, that's exactly how it works.
Yes.
So you have to be adaptable and flexible.
Yeah.
So now you've got a documentary that's coming out in development as a result of this book.
Yes.
Tell us about that. It's exciting.
It's very exciting because this will take the story, many stories. There was a famous black and white photographer. In those days, a black and white photographer, most film was black and white early on.
Sure.
And he captured so many pictures of what happened during this time period. So this documentary, we have the photography and from that period. We have judges, we have stories, we have Louis Armstrong. I mean, it just goes on and on. So the storyline is going to be phenomenal.
A very rich one too, huh?
And it still lives on.
It's still going.
It's still going.
The story is still being added to.
Exactly.
That is amazing.
Isn't that great?
That really is.
Yeah.
Is there a message that you see coming from this documentary that you hope people get?
Oh, okay, I hope that what comes from this documentary, number one, that it's distributed throughout the United States and more, bigger than that even, that, look, the children, they just need direction. And it's the same thing as, it's the same line as when you're dying. The people that I worked with, when they had someone listen to their story, when they had someone who cared about their story, it flips.
Yeah.
It's a whole different.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
talking about success with Jack Canfield, that's what he believes in.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you start seeing the successes because someone believes in them. That's what I hope happens. And
you also feel that it's essential to teach children, especially early on,
yes,
to aspire to be great leaders too, right?
absolutely.
Tell us why.
Because I've been very lucky, because I've paid attention to the great leaders in my life. When I was a little girl, you know, in 1899,
You're a little girl in 1899.
right. When I was
She has a sense of humor too, which is very good in life. Resilient and funny.
Thank you. But when I was a little girl, we had to write, who do we respect the most? And I put down Helen Keller, because here was someone, little did I know that I would be facing many, but you know, she took her tragedy and look what she did.
And even still today. Right.
You see?
People are moved by, influenced by her story.
Exactly. And there's many, hundreds, thousands more like that.
Well, you also, it's good to really early on teach them to be great leaders. And what do you think, what's an effective way to teach them to be exemplary individuals?
Well, number one, you need to be a good role model.
Yeah, yes, right.
I'm a strong believer in integrity and code of ethics.
Exactly. I've always said it's important to have role models, but it's even better to be one.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that's important. And then have leaders that they respect, and teach the children. Well, first of all, listen to what they want.
Right.
Listen to what's their vision. What are they dreaming about? What are they talking about? What are they pretending to be? And
they're figuring it all out too.
They're figuring it out.
And you may help them.
Yes, and then guide them. I really respect LeBron James, because he had a tough childhood. And against everything, he stayed focused. He had some good mentors. And to this day, he tries to be a good role model. You know, there are so many people like that.
There are people who do that every day.
Every day.
There's unsung heroes as well.
Yes.
Which leads me to this other book that is in development.
Yes.
Perfect segue.
Yes.
Called Silent Heroes, and you're working on this now. Unacknowledged stories of individuals whose lives serve a noble purpose. So I know that this is really near and dear to your heart.
Yes.
This is really a passion for you, this book.
Yes.
Because you are, again, which is a thread, I think, in your life, shining the light on those in various forms, whether it's the death and dying, whether it's children, whether it's animals, veterans. I mean, you seem to, whether it's famous people, Canfield, Larry King as well, all these different walks of life, all these different aspects of life, and you're shining the light on all of them. So now you have Silent Heroes. Tell us about this book and the inspiration and what this one's going to be about.
Well, obviously, you know, I like stories.
Sure.
And I believe that stories heal. And in my travels, as fate would have it, I meet people. And then they start speaking, and I'm going, oh, tell me about this. And the more we become engaged in a conversation, I'm thinking, wow, they are making a profound difference. They need to be recognized. And that's how this book came about, or it's in the process. We're working, you know. It's in the process.
It's in the process, and you're meeting with people.
Yes.
You've already spoken to people already and
Several.
have gathered their stories.
Yes, yes.
So what do you hope, when people read this, what do you hope they get out of this book? How will it change or change somebody's life, or possibly inspire them?
Because we're all heroes. And by maybe reading another person's story that by fate it's going to be in this book.
Yeah.
And their story moves and makes a difference. And then when they read this book, they're going, wow, maybe I am making a difference. Maybe my actions count, because they do count. That's what I want from this book.
And maybe nobody's ever pointed that out.
Yes.
And they've, you know, underplayed it.
Exactly.
But it really is making a difference in the lives of others.
Yes.
Which then comes back to yourself.
Yes.
It's really important.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to do that work.
Yeah, because, you know, sometimes you just discount
Yes.
every action you have with somebody. It matters.
It really
It
does.
does.
Now, you were, even though you lost your mother early on, you were inspired by your mother and your aunt and a teacher as well. Tell us a little bit about some of those major figures for however long they were in your life, the indelible mark they've left on you.
Well, my mother's my hero.
And you're named after her.
And I'm named after my
Nina.
mother, yes. So I spend my whole life saying Nina because that
opposed to
was her
Nina.
name, yes, you know. But she taught me very early on that everyone was important, that everything counts, that love is the greatest, and you know, love is used sometimes so, but
Everybody loves everything. Love ya, see ya, love ya.
no, but
Right.
but true compassion for humanity. Really embrace the next person, and I saw that. I saw the things that she did, and then my mother sang all the time, and she danced around the house. I mean, she was full of life, just full of life. I took that little toolbox with me when she died, and I kept it, and I held on to that. So I'm grateful for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I had a great aunt, which I had such respect for, that when she retired from teaching school, she started something which now throughout the United States is called ARC, A-R-C.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But she started the school where you took the children out of institutions that were mentally and physically handicapped. That's how they were named and titled in back in those days. And she said, why can't they be at home? Why can't they go to school? Why can't they? And as an 8-year-old, I volunteered at her school. Now, this was way before women were recognized, and she was named Woman of the Year, you know, because of that. That's a great role model, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. That's a great organization, too. I've done some work with them.
Incredible.
They have a bakery, and they have some other things where they're in there
Everything.
working. And
Laundry, they do
yeah,
all.
they do.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really amazing.
Yeah, a few years ago, someone said, "Oh, Nina, why don't you get on the board?" I said, I worked as a child. I'm very familiar with this.
Yeah.
I'm volunteering.
You were there before there was a board, right?
Yeah, it's like my son says, "Get on Meals on
Meals on
Wheels,"
Wheels.
and hospice. I said, I volunteered for all
You've
of that.
already done.
Yeah. You know, I did that.
Your tentacles have stretched, and you've touched so many lives.
Thank you.
You're a very inspirational
Thank you.
person and empowering for others as well.
Thank you.
You touched a little bit in the beginning of the interview on your real deep passion for the arts. Let's expand on that a little bit more.
I believe the arts, the performing and the creative arts, to me, are just probably the most profound healing element that you have. And if you have the privilege to be able to listen to some music, you can sit on the side of the road and listen to music. It doesn't, but it heals you. There's something so core. It's a vibration that is so core to us that, so I'm very passionate about the arts and promoting the arts in any form or fashion. Yeah.
And if you're making music or making art of any way, shape, or form, it's incredible too, because you're giving back to the world.
You are
right?
giving back to the world. You know,
and being in New Orleans, I mean,
we have
the jazz capital just about, and you've got music on the streets, and so you were surrounded by a lot of this growing up.
I was fortunate because I was the president of the opera. I was the president of the Southern Repertory Theater. We went to England 7 times. Well, not England. Excuse me. We went to Europe 7 times. We went to Russia and Budapest and France and Bonn, Germany, because you know, it's interesting because they were very fascinated that South Louisiana, you know,
had this desire and thirst for this.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And then sat on several boards, and then. You know, it's just, but you see the passion of people. It's a great way to communicate with other people. You don't have to speak the same language.
No.
And New Orleans is a melting pot of many different cultures, but we can resonate when it comes to music. You know?
Music, yeah. Well, for me, I'm a big, like we've talked about, big music collector, and aficionado. I don't smoke, but I call music my cigarette.
I know, I like that. I thought that was great.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
really, it's very healing, and it's
Yeah.
very uplifting. And it
Yes.
can really create a mood or enhance a mood
Yeah,
on a dime.
it does. Yeah.
How do you think individuals, and this is sort of a larger tying things together, your body of work, what are some things that individuals can do? You're obviously living it every day of your life, to try to make the world a better place. What are some of the first things they should do in that positive, forward-moving, empowering direction? Because there seems to be an undercurrent where people are, you know, they're looking to contribute. They're looking to find their life's purpose, but they're also looking for ways to contribute to society, leave, you know, a lasting impact in a positive way. So what are some of the first things that one can do in that direction?
I say find out what's your passion. What is your passion? What motivates you? What excites you? And then explore that. You explore that. You would be amazed if you, and listen to your heart. Just sit with yourself. What am I passionate about? What turns me on? What gets me excited? Then you'll make a difference.
Speaking of passion, where do you think your passion comes from, especially when it comes to wanting to tell the stories of others?
Well, as we spoke earlier, I have Irish blood. And I think it's the redhead Irish girl, you know.
Sure.
She's got a little fieriness in her.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, I grew up with music and stories. And I think it's just in my DNA. And I see, and you learn about people because you get to hear.
Right. Well, when you think about it, I mean, it's really fascinating because you've worked with just about every segment of society, from corporate to the entrepreneur just starting out, children, animals, people who are on an upward swing in life,
Sick,
people who are sick and dying.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really giving you a well-rounded perspective of life, and probably a deeper appreciation of it all, right? The fragility of it, the importance of it. What are some of the other things that has done for you? These incredible experiences you've had, because a lot of us sometimes, you know, we focus on one thing and one path in life, and we master that, but then we don't get the exposure to all these other elements. You have, and you've run to the fire as opposed to from the fire. So how has that enhanced who Nina Kelly is?
You know what? Thank you for seeing me. I thank you for that. You know, it humbles me. It really does, and it sobers me. And I believe in life. I really do. At the end of the day, the sun comes up, the moon comes, you know, sun goes up, the sun goes down, but it's the pulse of life. And I think that because I've had so many experiences, I don't take anything for granted. I look at it, Louis Armstrong sang the song, "What a Wonderful World." And when I hear babies cry, I see them grow, you know, they'll see things that, you know, I see things they'll never know. You know, that touches me because I think I'm lucky. I'm lucky because I'm passionate about life. And I've had a lot lot of tragedy.
You had loss early on in your life.
I've lost a lot of people
your mother
a long
and,
time,
right.
a lot. You know,
How has that, is that a source of, not necessarily inspiration, but has that also driven you as well, because you know the fragility
I do.
of it all?
I went through, you know, I normally don't speak about my past, but I went through a lot of deaths early on and a lot of tragedy. And yes, it gives me a great appreciation. It gives me, it makes me embrace life, you know? I try not to. I guess we all do, but I try not to take anything for granted. And I really work, I wouldn't even say it's work, I really try to see the next person. Because there's so much life in that other person.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, you're right, you know, I call these gifts, you don't always sign up for them.
Right.
But sometimes they're their greatest gifts ever.
They're right in front of you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I look back on my life now and I'm going, you know, I'm not sure if I'd take that road, but I did, or whatever. But I think they've been blessings more than I can ever imagine come from that.
All those roads you've taken have made you who you are today.
I probably wouldn't know any other way.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly
But thank
right.
you.
That's
Yeah.
what it's about.
Yeah.
What are some of the other exciting projects that you're working on and things that you would like to do in the future? I mean, I know we had a good conversation at our dinner meeting last night. You've got a million things going on and you're always thinking and always creating. Again, you know, a writer, author, storyteller, mythologist, humanitarian. You've worked, you know, in the healthcare industry. You've done a lot of different things. You've been touched by working with major well-known people, as well as really celebrating that unsung hero.
Yeah.
So you've really had, again, like I said, the full spectrum. What are some other exciting things that you're working on or that you'd like to see happen in the future for Nina Kelly?
I would like very much to always have music thread with the storyline. I would like very much to be able to share that. And it seems to me, and I also, well, there's another, but I also, I'll finish that thought, is that, and put that out there, that find your story. Help that to heal you. Help it so that you can come full circle. You know, you're never going to lose your story, but it doesn't have to be an extra piece of luggage. It can be a garden for you. See, that would be profound. Another vision that I'd like to see happen is create things to work with children, because, you know, I want to see children empower themselves early on. You know?
It's important.
Yeah, because they're the greatest imagining individuals on the planet right now. And let's bring out that creativity and then give them permission to be creative. But at the same time, teaching them.
Teaching them as
See,
well.
be the model. Be the model. Give them something to honor and respect, which I think certainly is called for on our planet in these days and time.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Well, you're making such a, you know,
you.
a profound and beautiful difference in everything you're
Thank
doing,
you.
and you're going to continue telling stories and writing and producing and all this incredible work that you do. Right? It's in your DNA and it's who you are, and it's touching lives.
Yeah, thank you. And laugh and play along the way.
Exactly.
You know?
That's the thing. You
Yeah.
have to realize that
Yeah.
that's what it's all about.
Oh, sure.
You have to savor it and enjoy it at the same time.
Yeah.
All these fabulous books, the documentaries. Wishing you continued
Thank
success,
you. Thank
Nina.
you so
really
much.
are a
Thank you.
tremendous source of inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
And you've touched so many lives, and just fascinated by all of this. And it's a joy to have the opportunity as host to, at least for the time we have allotted here, to tell your story, because you're always touching somebody else in their lives and enhancing their lives and touching so many lives you probably don't even realize you're touching. And now here we are telling and celebrating your story. And it's an honor to have you here to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks for giving us that opportunity.
Oh, thank you.
And the story continues.
And the story goes on.
Thank you, Nina. You're
Thank you.
a true joy and pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Nina Kelly truly is working to make this world a better place. She believes life is a powerful, energetic force, and loving one another could be the biggest lesson we learn on this earth. To learn more about special guest Nina Kelly, visit her website, ninamkelly.com. For CUTV News, I'm Jim Masters. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.